This is a tutorial introduction to building dashboards with Galileo. The dashboard that we will be building is this one. It is a dashboard of UFO sightings from the National UFO Reporting Center. The data set is originally from Kaggle. The dashboard you see has two sets of charts, sightings by country in the bottom left, sightings by state in the bottom right, sightings by month and country in the middle left, by state and month in the middle right, by type and country in the top left, and by type and state in the top right. Year is selected by the slider at the bottom. Country is selected by clicking on a country in the left chart, which changes the left chart displays. State is selected by clicking in the bottom right chart, which changes the right chart displays. We can make the right-hand charts a little more interesting by clicking on California. If you want to follow along with this tutorial, it is in the examples repo at github.com/engagelively/galileoexamples.git, and it is in the demos/UFOs Pandas folder. Now we're going to go about building the dashboard. First, let's take a look at the dataset, which is in the file ufos.csv. As you can see, the dataset has column date, which is the number of days since March 1st, 1948, the month of the year, the time of day, morning, afternoon, or night, the country of the apparition, the states, which is meaningful for the US and Canada only, and the type of apparition, disk, cylinder, and so on, and how long the UFO appearance lasted. This dataset was downloaded from Kaggle.com, cleaned a little, and the maintainer on Kaggle.com is Sigmund Axel, whom we thank. And now we're going to open up to build the dashboard over this. The first thing to do is to open up a dashboard file, which we can do from the launcher, the Galileo menu, or the file menu. Today we're doing it from the file menu. And the next thing to do is to open up a notebook, which we do from the file menu. The notebook will be used to send data to the dashboard. The first step is to install the libraries. We're going to use Pandas to form the tables for the UFO sightings, and we're going to use the Galileo libraries to wrap up the Pandas data frames and send them over to the dashboard. The Galileo libraries are free and open source. They are pre-installed, as is Pandas, on the Galileo hub. They can also be installed from our PyPy server using pip. The next step is to read in the tables. We will start by reading the world map into the table UFO, and then we'll make the USA table, the UFOs table, filtered where the country is equal to U. And let's take a look at the UFOs table. As you can see, it has the same columns that we saw in the CSV file, namely date, month, year, time of day, country, state, which is only valid for the US and Canada, and type of UFO and duration of sighting. We're now going to add a convenience function. What we're going to be doing is counting the number of sightings by year, country, state, month, and type in various combinations. So we're just going to define a quick function that counts, given a set of columns, counts the number of instances and groups by those columns, and returns the data frame. The count of each group will be in the column with name count column name, and the default for that is count. The next thing we're going to do is define a second convenience function, one that takes in a data frame, a table name, and a JupyterLab client, wraps the data frame in a new Galileo table with name table name. That will be the name it appears within the dashboard, and then uses client to send it over to the dashboard. With these in hand, it's time to define our first table. The world map is going to do a count of the UFO sightings by year and country, and is going to be the base for this map. So you define it and take a look, and indeed it has row, year, country, and number of sightings. The US map does the same for the United States, except in this case it's going to be year, state, and number of sightings. Now we're going to send these tables to the dashboard. First, we click on the dashboard tab to see it, and we take a look at the tables, and we see in fact that there are none as yet. We also have filters, views, and charts, which we're going to fill in later. Now let's go back to the notebook and start to fill in the tables. First, we click on the Notebook tab, And then we run the convenience functions that we've created to wrap the world and US tables and send them over to the dashboard. And now let's click over onto the Dashboard tab, look at the tables again, and we see that the two tables, aggregate CY and aggregate SY, for aggregate country year and aggregate state year, have been created. Now that we have tables, we can filter them. A filter is simply a user interface widget that picks either a value in the case of a select filter or a range of values in the case of a range filter in order to select rows of a table. In this case, we're going to use a slider, which is a form of select filter. We're going to call it year filter, and then we're going to have it filter values on column year. So I'll only choose the years that match the value in the slider. Go ahead, create it, and now we see the slider appearing in the top left. We're going to select the toolbar using the arrow menu, arrow tool at the top, and as we click on it, a halo of tools appears, including the cross, which is drag. We're going to use that to drag the filter to the bottom middle of the screen. We also have rotate, delete, and the handles on the side allow us to change the size of the filter. If we want to interact with the filter, we click the Interact tool, which is the hand right next to the arrow, and when we do that, clicking on the filter lets us move the knob, not drag the filter around. In the case of a filter, we can also change the value by interacting with the arrows above and below the text, or by entering a value right into the text box itself. Now that we have tables and filters, and a filter, we can use these to create a view. A view is simply a subset of the columns and the rows of an underlying table. The columns are selected at the creation of the view, and the rows are selected dynamically through the use of filters. So in this case, we're going to use the year filter to select a particular year. We start by giving the view a name, which we're going to call World Map, because this is going to be the base for our the data source for our World Map view, and we're going to do it over the country year table. So we're going to take a look at countries, years, and counts, and we're going to take a subset of those. We can see we have three columns: year, country, and count, and we're going to want to select country and count. Now, as it happens, the order of columns is extremely important because the first column is always the x-axis. In the case of a map, it's the name of the region that we're selecting. This time, the columns are in the right order, but if we wanted to change them, what we do is we'd use the Edit tool at the top right to switch into reorder mode, and then we would grab the columns and move them into the right order using the burger menus on the left, then switch back into select mode. And then we select the year filter, so we will only get rows matching the value selected on the year. And now we update the view, and now that we've done that, we can go and create the chart, the underlying, which will show the data on the view. So what we do, first of all, is click on Charts, Add Chart button to create a chart, give it a name, which we will also call World Map. Say we want it over the World Map view, so the World Map view will be the data source for this chart. Select it, go ahead and create the chart, and we see a table appearing in the top left corner. A table is the default chart because it can render absolutely any view, but we can change it using the chart editor that also pops up. So we go and we click on Charts, we want a map, we pick out the GeoChart map, and this looks okay. Red is few sightings, green is many, and you can see most of the world has no data, so we click OK. This turns into the GeoChart, and we drag it into position. And we can also use the knobs on the sides to resize it a little bit, make it the right size. Use the cross to drag it into place. We could rotate it if we wanted, but we don't particularly want to at this time. And now we go back in to choose to interact with filter. As we do, we can see that the chart changes value a little bit. Frankly, UFO sightings are in the United States and nowhere else in the world. So that being the case, let's go back to views, create a view for the United States, use the aggregate SY table this time, call it US map, and go ahead, create the view. Once again, we choose now state and count, and we choose the year filter again to filter the years. Go create the chart. This time choose the appropriate view. Call it US map and choose US map from the drop-down menu. Go ahead, create it. Once again, we got a table. This time we again want to go to Maps, Geochart, choose it. We want to customize this so because rather than having something over the region of the world, we want the region over the United States. And now there we have our map with the map of the United States. And this time, after we fix it up a little bit, trim it, we can go back and start to play with the filter. And as we do, this time we see gratifyingly the map on the right changes as we change the value of the filter. Let's go back to the notebooks and create the tables for the middle charts. The middle charts were aggregated by month. On the left by year, country, month, and on the right by year, state, month. So we will create those tables and have a look at what the U.S. table by state and year, month looks like. Now we just give the names, aggregate CYM for country, year, month, SYM for state, year, month, wrap them up, and use our convenience routine to send them to the table. And now as we go and look at the table, we can see, as we click on tables, that CYM is there, and here comes SYM. So now the tables are there, and we can create the middle views and charts. And now I want to create the charts which break down counts by year, by country and month on the left-hand side, state and month on the right-hand side. But notice the problem. We only have a filter for years. How are we going to filter by country and by state? And the answer is we're going to use the maps. So what I'm going to do first of all is create a view, world by month, for the left-hand chart. And it's going to be over the aggregate CYM table. So I'm going to go ahead and create it. And notice that I have on the bottom, I'm going to choose month and count as the columns on the top. But notice on the bottom I have two filters, not one. I have year filter and world map. I can use the map itself as a filter. When I click on any country, that country is selected. This is true not only for geocharts, where I can click on a country or a state, in the case of the United States, but it's also true of every other chart. If I click on the x-axis near the bar of a column chart, for example, the quantity for that column is going to be selected, not the value of it, but whatever is on the x-axis. Like if it was the month on the x-axis and I clicked on under March, March will be selected. So this is true of any chart, and we're going to use this to be able to select in this case, the countries that we're looking at in the column chart that we're going to create. So now we update this view. And now we are able to create a chart over that view. So we go through and make it the world month chart. And it's over the world by month view, which we select from the drop down. Create it. Again, a table is created. This time we select column chart as the appropriate chart. We say we don't have two series. The first column is labels on the x-axis. So we check that box. And now we have a column chart by month selected for a particular year. So we go ahead and click OK. And now we've got that, and notice that the title is automatically generated. It shows us that we are looking at what year we're looking at and what column we're looking at. So we resize that chart a little bit to make it fit nicely. And now that we've done that, we're going to do the same for the United States. So we click back over to Views, add a view, which is going to be US by month. It's going to be over the aggregate SYM table, in this case. So go ahead, choose that, update the view. We are going to choose month and count again, and for the filters, we're going to choose the year filter and the US map. And so now, clicking on the slider as before, we'll choose the year, but clicking on a state, we'll choose the state that we're looking at. Now we go and create the charts, the US month chart, which will again be a column chart. Click to use the first column as labels. This time, what the heck? Let's customize it a little bit and put month on the x-axis. So go through to the horizontal axis and say, yes, it should be month. Click on that, and we have it. Let's resize it to be the same size as the world chart. Just moving it over for alignment. There we are. And now we have the world by month chart. As we click on a state, after we've resized the US map a little bit, after we click on a state, you can see that the bar chart changes to reflect the values for the state we've chosen. So now we're able to select, and it's very important, year using the year filter, and we're able to select state using the map on the left, country using the map on the right, and the important thing to remember is this is true for any chart at all. Time to put in our last two charts. Click over to the notebook again, and this time we're going to aggregate by, for the left-hand side, year, country, and type, and on the right-hand side by state, year, and type, which are going to put into the tables CYT and SYT. So we formed them using our first convenience routine, send them over to the dashboard. Using our second convenience routine, we'll go ahead and do that, run it, and now as we click over on the dashboard tab again, we can see that when we click on tables, that in fact those two new tables are here. So we'll use them to create views, just as we did before. Go off and create, first of all, the world type view for the left-hand column, which will be over the aggregate CYT table. Create it. It will have columns type and count, and we will use the year filter and the world map again to do the filtering. So we click on that. Let's do the same thing for the US. Create the US type table, or state type table, pardon me, which will be over the aggregate SYT table. So the state type view, it will have, again, columns type and count. It will have year filter and US map as the filters to select the rows. Once again, clicking on the state selects the state. Clicking on the row selects on the filter selects the year. Now we'll create the world type chart, which will be over the world type view. Create it. This time, select a pie chart. Click OK. Resize and put it into nice shape in the top left corner. Use the move tool to align it with the other charts. And now do the same thing for the US side. Create a state type chart to go with the state type view. And once again, select the pie chart. Resize, make sure it's actually symmetric to the world type view. And then drag it straight across to make sure to get it to align. And now at this point, once we have these things fully in place, we're done building charts. This was actually, except for the decorators you saw earlier, which we're just about to put in, the data, but now let's go ahead and go into interaction mode so you can play with it and play with the states a little bit to see how the charts change. Play with the slider filters, see things on both sides change, and now hit the country map and see how the top and bottom changes. So now our dashboard, we've now built a dashboard, and it's completely in. Now I've completed all the dashboard work, but I'd like to add some decoration. First, I go to the Shapes menu in the toolbar, pick an ellipse, and go ahead and add it. Now that I've done that, I can change various properties of it, from its fill, shadow, the opacity, whether it's opaque or translucent, and so forth, and control the position and the height and shape much more precisely than I can with the knobs. I'd like to go ahead and choose fill, and I'll pick out a nice purple. Go down and don't really want a border around this, so I'll set the border to 0 pixels, so that's fine. Move it a little bit to the appropriate place. Now what I'd like to do is put some text on it that says, well, this is a bunch of UFO sightings. So I'll go ahead and create a text box using the A in the toolbar. Go ahead and type the text I want. And once I've done that, I use the same toolbar on the right in order to style it. And you can see that in addition to shape, I also have some text properties now because I've got a text. Change the font, change the size. The color of text can be changed, which I'd like to do because it's going to be sitting on top of purple. So go ahead and do that. Make it bold. Change the alignment to center, and then just drag it on top of the purple, and there. Now we've got some text and a shape, so our dashboard isn't looking so nice. In addition to texts and shapes, we could use an image that's appropriate. So I'm going to select image from the toolbar, draw one on the screen. It builds in when I click away the Harmonies tab. I drag it over to an appropriate spot. And then I see as it builds in, and we shape it a little bit, that it is in fact a very nice stock image of a green field and clouds, not really appropriate for UFOs. So now what I'm going to do is go over to the image URL dialog box in the right-hand sidebar that you can see, and I'm going to delete the URL of the stock image that we have here and instead paste in the image of something appropriately UFO-ish. And now that I've done that, we have a UFO image that is actually appropriate, with the UFO taking off against the sky. Also, notice that I've left these two ugly borders around the text and around the image. I select them, go to the border menu on the right sidebar, and click that one pix border down to 0. And now that I've done that, we don't have any more ugly borders on the scene. This image, by the way, is the image of a commemorative coin from the Royal Canadian Mint. As you can see, it's a coin in the shape of an alien face. It also allegedly glows in the dark, and what it commemorates is the Falcon Lake incident, which was Canada's most famous UFO sighting, and it was in 1967. So you can Google the Falcon Lake incident, and if you'd like a copy of that commemorative coin, I'm sure the Royal Canadian Mint will be happy to sell it to you at $20. And now I'm just going to rename the file on disk from UFOs to my UFOs. The suffix for Galyleo Dashboard is .gd.json, so we're going to keep to that name. And now we have completed construction of the dashboard. One last thing I would like to show is that there is a JSON form for the Galyleo Dashboard file, as shown by the suffix. You can see it here. I'm looking at it with JSON Viewer and expanding it out. The file format is completely specified. It's open source, completely specified in their documentation. So this can be edited, can be generated directly with Python if you wanted, just by following that directions without using drag and drop. And you would also be able to look to the Galileo menu or the help menu, find the Galileo reference, and then take a look at the Galileo interchange format where it's spelled out. Moreover, all of the things that I have shown you in this tutorial are there. This tutorial itself is in a GitHub repo, the Galileo examples repo, and you should clone it and take a look at the UFOs Pandas tutorial, and that's what we've just been through. Thanks for watching this video tutorial. For a full set of manuals and instructions, go to galileoUserDocs.readthedocs.io, or just use the Help or Galileo menus on a JupyterLab extension running this. For a full set of repo of tutorial and demo examples, go to github.com, engage lively, galileoexamples.git, where you will find this example in the demos/UFOs Pandas directory. Thanks very much for your attention.